Inside the grand halls of Harvard University, the air buzzed with ambition. Students rushed from one lecture hall to another, dressed in polished shoes and tailored blazers. Among them walked a girl with faded jeans, a simple sweater, and an old backpack that had clearly seen better days. Her name was Emily Thompson, and unlike most of her classmates, she wasn't born into privilege or power. She was the daughter of Harvard's longtime janitor, Mr. Thompson, and had been awarded admission based purely on her brilliant academic record. The students in her advanced mathematics class barely glanced at her when she walked in. But Professor Alan Whitmore noticed. He was known for being brilliant but harsh. His lectures were legendary, and his impatience for mediocrity was equally famous. As Emily walked toward the back of the room and took a seat, Professor Whitmore gave her a look of mild amusement. "Miss Thompson, is it?" he asked, glancing at his roster. "You're aware this is advanced theoretical mathematics, not introduction to algebra?" The class chuckled. Emily gave a small nod. "Yes, sir, I'm in the right place." Whitmore raised an eyebrow but said nothing more. The lesson began, and as he covered complex integrals and abstract equations, Emily took notes rapidly, her mind processing each concept with ease. Days turned into weeks. Emily never missed a class. She didn't speak often, but when she did, her questions were deep, her logic flawless. Still, many students ignored her, choosing instead to form groups among themselves, discussing math over coffee or comparing notes late into the night. Emily had no such luxury. When classes ended, she would head down to the janitorial closet where her father waited for his night shift. Sometimes she helped him mop the floors before heading to the library for more study. Despite being one of the brightest minds in the room, she was still the janitor's daughter. That label stuck with her. It hovered in whispered conversations and lingered in side glances from both peers and professors. Then came the day that changed everything. It was a Friday afternoon. Professor Whitmore was in a particularly smug mood. He wrote a long equation on the board, one that many graduate students had failed to solve over the years. "If anyone here believes they understand real mathematics," he said, "feel free to give this one a try." No one moved. The silence was heavy. And then Emily stood up. Without saying a word, she walked to the front, picked up the marker, and stared at the board. Some students scoffed under their breath. Professor Whitmore crossed his arms, watching with interest. Emily began to write. Each line she added brought clarity. Her logic flowed naturally, transforming abstract theory into something beautifully simple. The room, once buzzing with doubt, fell into stunned silence. She didn't falter. She didn't glance at anyone. She just kept solving. Emily continued her solution on the whiteboard, her hand steady and confident. Each symbol, each step she wrote, built upon the last with elegant precision. A few students exchanged wide-eyed looks. Some leaned forward, their previous smirks replaced by awe. Even Professor Whitmore, who had mocked her just weeks ago, narrowed his eyes in disbelief. In less than 5 minutes, the equation that had stumped advanced scholars for years now had a full, clean solution right before their eyes. Emily capped the marker, stepped back from the board, and quietly returned to her seat. There was complete silence. Professor Whitmore slowly walked to the front, examining each line with a frown, but his expression gradually shifted. He traced the steps she had written with his finger, nodding in spite of himself. When he turned back to the class, his voice was softer, almost humbled. "This solution," he began, clearing his throat, "this is correct. Brilliant, actually. I haven't seen this approach before. It's original." The class broke into murmurs of amazement. A few students even clapped. Emily, who had remained quiet and calm, offered a small smile and nodded once. For the first time, she wasn't being seen as the janitor's daughter. She was being seen as a mathematician. After class, Professor Whitmore caught up with her. "Miss Thompson," he said, almost hesitant, "I owe you an apology. Your insight today was extraordinary. I misjudged you." Emily nodded politely. "Thank you, sir. I'm used to being underestimated." That evening, word of her solution spread through the department. Professors, doctoral students, and even the dean were talking about the quiet undergrad who had cracked one of the most complex problems on the board. Emily was invited to speak at an upcoming university colloquium, and soon after, a research assistant position was offered to her by a prominent mathematics researcher at MIT. Back home, her father listened in amazement as she told him what had happened. He gave her a proud hug, his eyes brimming with tears. "I always knew you had something special, sweetheart," he whispered. Emily smiled. "You gave me everything I needed, Dad. You believed in me before anyone else did." From that day on, no one dared question her place at Harvard. She was no longer invisible, no longer looked down on. She had earned their respect, not with privilege or money, but with intellect, determination, and quiet brilliance. And while the halls of Harvard remained filled with the wealthy and the elite, they now echoed with one more powerful truth. True genius can come from anywhere, even from the daughter of a janitor.